Okay, and welcome to part two of validity reliability. So in this one, we're going to be looking at research ethics, and hopefully it shouldn't take as long as the last video because these should be quite simple and straightforward. So with the first slide, if you click on this link here, it takes you to the BASES website, and it has the code of conduct, and it's got all these different areas which are listed down. So in terms of what is research ethics, it basically comes under this umbrella here of BASES. So think of them as like the governing body of sports research. So when you go to university and take your dissertation, where you're going to conduct your own bit of research, you'll need to go onto that website and follow through these sort of rules and regulations, as it were, to make sure that your research is safe, professional, it's ethical, and well, ideally that everything there is going to be valid and reliable when it comes to doing results and testing. So a couple of things to note for consideration is with data collection. So this one here is all about data anonymity. So making sure that if you're going to start to collect any form of data, such as maybe things like body fat or whatever it may be here, you put people down in subject 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so that when it comes to pulling off that data, you don't know what anyone's name is, and that's pretty much the point, because you want to make sure that you keep people anonymous. With this one here with data protection and confidentiality, we've got two sort of subcategories here. The first one with data protection is just to make sure that things are locked away safely. So either you use like a filing cabinet with a lock and a key to keep all your paperwork safe, or if you're using a laptop, password protected. So just to make sure that any sensitive information, including things like consent forms, are all going to be kept away. Finally, this one here, confidentiality, is more about you just keeping your mouth shut. So you are going to come into contact with a lot of sensitive information with potential clients, whether it's medical, mental issues, whatever that thing may be, and basically you're trusted as a professional to not to say anything. With familiarization or competence, as it were, this is more about making sure that you work within your skill set. So you would not be doing things like blood lactate testing, sampling, if you haven't got any training and you're not competent or familiar in this sort of area. Performance analysis, have you had any training? Have you done this before? So you need to make sure that everything that you do is something you have some form of knowledge on, and that you're competent to do so. So again, things like this, you'll be doing this at university. This stuff here you'll probably do at university, but with these kind of things, we've kind of had a bit of practice with these in lessons, and in some of your units, you'll be doing performance analysis, where you'll go out and do some videos. You'll go out and do fitness screens, such as sort of sprint timing gates, doing body fat assessments. So these are things that you'll probably be more familiar with because they'll be part of your units at college, whereas this is a little bit more high level, level 4, 5 and 6 when you get to degree level here. This one here, ethical clearance. In short, this is just to make sure that you've got permission. So you might speak to your school, university, college, your teacher, tutors, head of department, wherever they may be, and basically you ask them for permission to conduct the sport or the research that you want to do, and you go through this here, which is like an ethical clearance form. So this ethical clearance form is going to highlight every single thing that you are doing and in great detail, and what will basically happen is it will be sent off to someone like, let's say, myself, or someone who's head of that particular area. They'll read through it and just start to have a look of whether yes, we approve this, or no, we don't. So if they don't approve it, then you need to update it and improve certain aspects. So maybe things about your data collection is not very good. Maybe things about your validity of testing is not very good. So that's the whole point of clearance, is that it goes through the ethics board. They'll check it, make sure everything is all in place, to, I suppose, bulletproof yourself from any backlash. And once everything's all squeaky clean, it will get approved and you can conduct that research. And with this one here, subject welfare, this is more about making sure that the participants and the subjects that you're using are safe, and in terms of how you're going to be conducting the research with different groups. So First of all, this is more to make sure that you yourself are clear to test participants of certain age groups or vulnerable adults, so a DBS check. Whereas these different pictures here symbolise what would be the difference of testing between different populations. So if you've got males and females, are you going to be doing things differently between males and females to make sure that they are safe, or is there a need for them to be different? Again, if you've got younger and older participants, is there a difference between your testing method, or are they exactly the same? How do you adapt them to make sure that all populations are safe in that working order? So again, males, females, and also disabled candidates. So if you're looking at, say, 60 participants, you might have, say, 4, 5 or 6 that have a disability. How do you make sure that they are going to be safe in their testing? And finally, we come to some of the more high-level stuff, which is more about the what-if scenarios that might happen during testing. So I've got here a couple of different questions in terms of how personally would you differentiate between males and females in different types of tests? Would you? Or would you not? Explain why. How do you conduct yourself with perhaps under 16s? So this would be very different to working with adults. These are quite interesting ones that might take place during your studies. So imagine if you're doing body fat assessment tests and you're doing skin fold calipers, and some of the subjects are making comments about other people. What do you do in that situation? Things like paperwork, laptop is left unattended, or there's no password, what would happen if that is the case? So there's some interesting questions here that I want you to answer. And in terms of what happens if you break the rules, here are a couple of things that you need to highlight in your assignment. And this is purely about you doing a bit of research here and finding out what you think. So what if you make an honest mistake? Is that okay to make an honest mistake in research? Yes, no, you make a decision here. What if you're just complacent? What if you just are very neglectful and you're just messing up a lot? So how do you address this? But what's going to happen to you for being complacent? What if it's completely not your fault? You've done everything you can, something messed up, something happened, or or even this one here, or someone else was to compromise you. What would happen? What happens to you as a result? Is it your fault? So you need to really think hard about this, because the whole point of that is you're going through your ethical clearance to make sure that you are absolutely bulletproof and nothing would happen. So if any of these do happen, what's the consequence? Okay, and then finally we come to part B of the assignment, which again, similarly laid out to part A, but this one here you're explaining the importance of validity, reliability, accuracy and precision. And there's some guidance here in terms of what you need to explain. So with the slides previously, go into detail and talk about what validity is, face validity, what internal, external and ecological validity is, and give examples. So ecological validity means X, Y, Z. For example, in research, this is something that would be ecological valid or not. Or in reliability, again, definition, give an example. For example, that a really good one is a hand grip test with, say, inter-research reliability. One researcher might do it this way, another might do it that way. It's the same test, but you might get slightly different results because the way the researcher conducted it was maybe perhaps slightly different. So again, explain each, give examples in sport research. With this one here, exactly the same format. Explain research ethics and the importance of and their importance in sports-based research. So if you go through the slides, look at each of the titles and do the same thing. So confidentiality is what we explained. Again, it's keeping your mouth shut. For example, in sports research, you might come into contact with a lot of sensitive information. You might find out people's names, addresses, mobile numbers, emails, personal medical history, whatever it may be. And you as a researcher are trusted to make sure that you keep your mouth shut. You don't share that information with anybody else. Next one down, talk about subject welfare. This means the following. Examples in research could be. And again, think about how you would conduct a test between, say, body fat assessments between men and women. You still need to collect that data, so what would you do differently between males and females? So again, each section explain, give examples in sport research. And then finally here, this is the high level stuff. So merit 2 and distinction 2. And you need to analyse and justify the relationship between validity, reliability, accuracy and precision. So just bear in mind this first part is made up here. And I've written this down here. So for the section, you might want to split into 2 different sections. And first, we're only going to talk about these 4 things. And you need to link them together to create sports research. So talk about them, give your personal opinion, why you think they're so important, and how they're linked together to create a strong and a robust research design. So really go into detail and say that that they are all important in sports research because validity, reliability need to link in the following ways. Accuracy and precision all need to tie in together to ensure the following. So what you can probably do at this point here is think really hard about a type of study or a type of research that maybe you could conduct that you feel ticks all the boxes for internal validity, external, ecological validity, or the different factors, reliability, accuracy and precision. So think hard about what that study would be. How does it tick all those boxes? And maybe use that as your example and explain that this is an example of a test that ticks all these boxes because this is how they all work together to create a really strong and robust research design. And again, it's asking you to justify the reason I think this is because. So your opinion. And then secondly, the last part is you're going to be talking about ethics in great detail and talking about the implications of not working in an ethical way. And that's what we just looked at in terms of lesson 6. And it had those questions there asking about ethics. So you need to explain how you would go about creating ethical research and what steps you would take. So again, think really hard about what you would do if you are going to create a research study. You've done the same here with validity, reliability, accuracy and precision, and they need to do the same with ethics. What would be your first step? So how would you ensure confidentiality? How would you ensure data protection, subject anonymity, so that names or information isn't shared before or after the test? How would you ensure that all the participants are safe? How would you ensure that your design is very robust, that there's not going to be any issues? How would you ensure that there's not going to be problems between the subjects and participants themselves? So really go into detail and talk about what you would do as the researcher. Okay, remember, you're justifying your ability to conduct research in an ethical way in sports research. And then finally, the questions that I've put down. So if we go back onto some of these slides here, possible ethical considerations to talk about some of this. So you can say, what if you were understaffed and need an extra pair of hands to help? You know, this could be a particular area that you might want to explore for ethical considerations, and go that if this happened, what would you do in that situation, and how would it potentially impact on you? And again, these are some really good questions in terms of the implications. What if you try to use a couple of shortcuts? You know, running a bit short of time. I think this is going to be a quicker way. What's going to happen to you as a result? Would you lose your job? Would you get punished? Would you just get a bit of shouting at? Maybe, maybe not. You need to really have a think about that. So this is really more about you, yourself, what you think. And remember what the criteria is asking you. Analyze, you're just talking about each of the areas. And finally, justify. So you're giving your opinions. So remember, justifying here is your opinions between the relationship of these 4 things. And then finally, your opinions about your ability to conduct ethical research. So again, go through that step-by-step guide and use that same sentence structure. The reason I think this is because. The reason I would do this is because. I feel this due to the following reasons. Okay? And then if you've got any issues, again, feel free to email, message me, and I'll get back to you ASAP where I can. And finally, you just need to make sure that as soon as you have completed that Word document, that you are uploading it to the Moodle site, and you are uploading it here, which is part B, submission. Okay, I know that some of you have emailed me work, but you need to make sure that you go onto Moodle, click on this folder and upload your work to this here so I can mark it.